That's right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 10 a.m. It is Tuesday, May 9th. I'm going to call to order the Washoe County Board of Commissioners meeting, regular board meeting for May 9th, 2017. This time, Mr. Norm Acevedo, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have to do it. I've had it.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo. All right. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Bob Lucy, Chair.
Here.
Marcia Burke-Bigler, Vice Chair.
Here.
Kitty Jung.
Present.
Vaughn Hartung.
Here.
Jeannie Herman.
Here.
County Manager John Slaughter.
Present.
Assistant District Attorney Paula Pirelli.
Here.
And I'm Jan Galasini, Chief Deputy Clerk. Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, this time we are on to public comment. This morning we have quite a few people signed in for public comment. We'll start off with Miss Tammy Holt-Still.
Do you want him to read that? Read the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
this is public comment.
Good job.
Comment heard on this item is limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. Commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person, and comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Ms. Holt-Still, followed by Mr. Danny Cleus.
Ms. Still has a handout that I will be distributing to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, Commissioners. Tammy Holt still again. Still here. Number one, I am extremely upset with the lack of performance by Washoe County to protect all the residents in Lemon Valley. Shane Street, which is off of James Street, did not receive a gravel barrier like behind Compton Street. You have pictures where the water is now behind Shane Street in the backyards of the residents and encroaching on their homes. And Compton, where Washoe County protected those residents with a gravel barrier. Why is there a difference? Why did you not protect everybody? Number two, this is another written and verbal request for the county manager to produce requested full accounting of all expenditures for the declared emergency for Lemon Valley. If I don't receive it, I guess my next step will be going to court. Number three, from what I have seen, there has not been any movement or plans for movement to advance the recovery in Lemon Valley. Why not? Waiting for evaporation? Maybe the county needs to assist Mother Nature. Attached is one example of a way to speed this process up, and in the process would also help with the mosquito abatement with the aspirators are placed in the shallow areas. For your reading pleasure, I have also included fast ways for water evaporation and the aspirator information. Number four, waste management is still an issue as an increase and reduced to minimal services. Also, the residents have requested additional waste services in Lemon Valley for the flooding, but that has not been reported as asked for. Time for Washoe County representatives to stop with excuses of not knowing how to handle flooding issues and ask other professionals like California questions to assist residents instead of doing nothing at all. It goes back to Washoe County employees are public servants to perform in good faith services for the public, which pays taxes for their salaries for performance of services. Blaming the residents for not taking action to protect their property or telling them they must sacrifice their homes to protect their neighbors is not in good faith services. Again, this goes back to fiduciary responsibility. You, the board leaders, are the leaders. Please use that to help others understand what they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Holt-Still. Next, we have Mr. Danny Cleus, followed by Elise Weatherly.
My name is Danny Cleus, and this is getting old. I keep looking up there at what's written on the wall every time I come in here. Working together to provide and sustain a safe and secure, healthy community. We haven't seen nothing working lately. We haven't had a community meeting in over 2 months. What's going on? We haven't seen any movement out there. When we do see police on a heavy patrol out there, it's only when one of you is out there or the news media is out there. We have speeders. My granddaughter almost got hit by a car. My dog almost got hit by a car. And that's not worth it. We're tired of it. We put up sandbag speed bumps. County came and took them away. But yet, the county, the sheriffs, don't want to do anything about it. It's our neighbors that are doing it because they're running late. But that's no excuse. I scream every day at a speeder. I get flipped off, called names, but nothing ever gets done. You call the sheriffs, they come out and say, what do you want us to do about it? That's not an answer we should have. Next thing, the mosquitoes out there. Last week, very warm. They started coming out. This week again, going to be very warm. They're coming out. Something has to be done about that. I hope when agenda item 13 comes around, you guys can give us some answers. We're tired of not hearing anything. Even if it's trying to blow smoke up everybody's you-know-what, or tell us something that we can also go by. Every time I talk to one of the representatives that come down there, it's, we're working on it. We're tired of hearing, we're working on it, and we need something done. There's a lot more people that are flooding or going to be flooded here pretty soon. We have drainage coming in from Stead and Silver Knolls area. Why hasn't that been addressed yet? You guys want to wait until the lake evaporates? It's not going to with water coming in. How is it? If you got a steady stream of water coming in, and if it rains, it gets over, that water's not going to evaporate. How are we supposed to get our lives back to normal? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clayus. Next, I have Miss Elise Weatherly, followed by Mr. Sam Dene.
Good morning, Elise Weatherly from Nevada, although sometimes I think it's California Junior, just a joke. I have a couple of things I wanted to ask you guys. I was told about a year ago from the one that talks to me, why don't you stop trying to uproot the weeds so much and start focusing in on the fruit? I go, okay, well, what does that mean? And sometimes it just means looking at problems that exist and having solutions to what we can do about it. What I've noticed with the Washoe County Police is that they wait on the side of the road in the weeds, apparently looking for people that they can ticket, especially for distracted driving. And what I'm going to say is that, to me, causes distraction. So we've got like this little, hyperbole thing going on there. What I would suggest is, would it be possible for us to let those officers donate their time to the City of Sparks sometimes? The City of Sparks, we had meetings with the detectives there, and they are so overwhelmed with murder, with drug things, with police officers getting hurt, that they don't have time for house robberies, or for house break-ins and robberies. I know I see police on the side of the road just kind of waiting for other people to drive by, which causes some division. What about donating their time to the City of Sparks? I know it's a different fiduciary responsibility, we have different budgets, but we're a community, just a suggestion. And I know that you guys probably don't want to hear from me, but the other thing is, too, when did we become a bilingual nation that everything has to be in Spanish? I will tell you that as a person that's just like every other person, if I went to another country and they did not make me speak their language, I wouldn't do it, because it's easier not to. So as a nation, we haven't made it absolutely impossible. Well, we say you don't have to learn to speak this language. We'll make it easy for you. We'll pay for interpretations. I went to a court hearing the other day, and the judge was very sweet. He was very congenial. He was very nice. And he talked to the interpreter so that the lawbreakers could have a form of communication with that judge. So that's okay for us to pay for money for that, but the fact of the matter is what I think that speaks to the community is, you're not smart enough to learn English, so we're going to make it easy for you. Instead of saying, we are a community, let's speak the same language so we can communicate. But the government has this one-shoe-fits-all thing, too, where there's no discernment, there's no discretion, there's just this blanket thing about how we're going to make it easy for everybody. But the back end of it is that you make it harder for me. As an employer, you're supposed to not let people speak in Spanish if there's a non-Spanish speaker there. The very people that are supposed to put the law into place are the ones that break it. It doesn't seem to bother them. All it does is that I can't understand what's going on. Should I learn that language, or is this our culture? So I would like to see us sharing the law enforcement with each other, and I would like to see the whole government have one language so that we can communicate. I think that's a fair request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Motherly. Next, Mr. Sam Dene, followed by Kathy Brandhorst.
Sam, Dene, that's me. Sam, the DNA of Reno government, the heart and soul, body and mind of Reno government. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, and then I was in the Air Force for 26 years, defending our nation, flying B-52 bombers and F-4 Phantoms, defending the nation against enemies inside of the border and outside of the border. And since my airline, Pan American Airlines, was blown out of business by the terrorists, I've been defending the citizens against the media mouse wacko freaks that permeate our community. Now, the Reno Gazette really does not like the Washoe County Commissioners, and it really does not like the county manager who I nominated to his job, so that makes me really mad too. But they really do not like law enforcement, and especially the Sheriff's Department. Now, granted, for the last 2 months, the Reno Gazette has had nothing else to do but hang out in the jail to find out what's going on there. And granted, the jail is no place to be, no fun to be there, and a poor young man died in there. And the circumstances were not pretty, but they took this thing 3 full pages. Every person in town who dies should get 3 full, hard-driving, wackadoodle pages dedicated to them. All I can call it, ladies and gentlemen, is switch and bait. All of these problems they think they have at the jail, Sam comes to these podiums and tells the people about the real problems for all these years. For instance, one of the main problems is this infinite school bond tax that is out there. I do not believe that was an honest election, because I have my voice, my finger on the pulse of the community, and I have not spoken to one person who voted for that. So I don't even trust that. It's an infinite tax. The bureaucrats are being given money for all of your lives and all of our lives. That's bad. Why aren't they reporting and investigating that? Why aren't they reporting and investigating the vote rigging that I've been proving beyond a doubt since the day that I first put my name on a ballot in this area, where they've been stealing my votes left and right? I've got proof. It's not hard. It's not sour grapes. Why don't they investigate something good? How about the Air National Guard? The Air National Guard is getting firefighting C-130s. I ordered them to get that 10 years ago when they got the C-130s. Finally, 10 years later, they're going to have firefighting C-130s, going to save hundreds of lives and houses against the fires. Mainly, there should be a federal investigation against the Reno Gazette Journal, because it violates the Nevada open media law that these people have to obey. They receive massive amounts of tax dollars, and that makes them a public body that should have public comment and should allow Sam to come and get in their face. Thank you over there. Thank you, and thank you for the smiley face.
Thank you, Mr. Dene. Next, we'll have Miss Kathy Brandhorst, followed by Miss Nikki Berry.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. The problem is that nobody's been hired for the Washoe County Commissioners. And you're supposed to, evacuate, aren't you, from the building? Because there is no place for you here. And you have given me back my house, but I'm not living in it, am I? No. I don't have a home to live. You people steal it from me. Even though you steal my little mouse from me, because you think that she said a little bit too much about you. You tortured her. You even made her fall all apart, even the stuffing out of her body and everywhere else. And thanks to the seniors, they put her back together. And she still talks about you people that are on death row. You still murder, you still torture, you still carry your machine guns, you still carry your shotguns, you also carry handguns stolen from police officers, you also carry the guns stolen from sheriffs, and you still use them. I was talking to a police officer trying to give him some information. This one police officer barrels out from the street, the side street, and chases right down after the police officer and says, I'm going to kill you. Why would he do such an awful thing like that? Because he already knows that the police officer knows too much about him. He's not a police officer. So he's going to get rid of the real police officer, isn't he? He's going to put bullet holes all over his body and make sure he's not going to talk. Well, that's exactly what's going on in this area. You have to get rid of them sooner or later because they are victims. And you know, the victims are still here. They cannot get out of this area. And you like that idea because the more you can torture them. I also know that the innocent in the jails have been tortured to death.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst. Next, we have Ms. Nikki Berry.
Hello, Commissioner Chair, fellow commissioners, County Manager, and District Attorney's Office. My name is Nikki Berry, and I am a resident in the Lemon Valley area. I respectfully request that dumpsters be placed throughout the residential areas of Lemon Valley so we can begin the cleanup effort throughout and in our community. Thank you in advance for any consideration that you might provide to my request.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Seeing no further speakers at this time, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board. At this time, Mr. Manager. Item 4.
Mr. Chair, item 4 is Commissioner, County Manager's announcements, reports, updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
All right. Manager, do you have anything? You're not signed in. All right. So I have Vice Chair Marcia Brick-Bigler signed in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of issues. We all received a letter from regarding the Steamboat Canal, and I would like to ask for a staff report to the board on what's being done about the canals. According to the legal letter that we all received from Valoria, whatever, group of attorneys, there's apparently some kind of agreement somewhere that says that Washoe County has responsibility for maintenance, a shared responsibility, I believe, for maintenance on the Steamboat Creek. And so I would like to have a staff report on just exactly what is our responsibility and what are we, and if we are responsible, what are we doing? And not just in that one. I know there are other creeks throughout the area, streams throughout the area that we might have some, contractual responsibility for, and I'd be curious to hear what all that is. Also, I have I can let it go until, I'll just let it go until consent, but I want to ask a question on consent, so, thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next, I have Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On our sort of dashboard, we have, Commissioner Lucy and myself have alarm ordinance response, and that's not scheduled until June 23rd. And I'm wondering why do we have to wait until June to hear this? It should have been heard long ago. I've received calls from people who have received late notices. This is sort of the continuing process for them. I want to know where that money is going, and who deems it proper to send out a late notice when it's something in their system. I think June 23rd is far too deep. And then this is probably going to take more than 2 hours of staff time, but I'd like to have Mr. Smith and Mr. Solero talk to us about what a North Valley's stormwater utility would look like, and no different than in Spanish Springs, how they would pay into a stormwater utility. And if there are flows that are coming from outside of Lemon Valley, are they legally coming from outside of Lemon Valley? Is it permitted to flow into Swan Lake? As you both will recall, in Spanish Springs, we were flowing all the way down through the Ore Ditch and into Sparks, and because of the development, we had to put in a utility that metered those flows, that attenuated those flows. And so just like every other place in the county that has utilities, let's look at it. Let's look at what the costs are. This is not something that's free, that one piece of the county pays for and another piece of the county does not pay for. I'm very resolved on this. We've paid millions of dollars in Spanish Springs over the years for a great stormwater utility. Is it perfect? No, but it works very, very well, and I think that it's a great model for other places. And I, like Commissioner Burke-Bigler, look forward to understanding what our responsibilities are, not just in Steamboat Ditch, but in other ditches throughout the region, and do we have a responsibility, at least in part, to keep those clean, even though they are for agricultural uses. And then, I should have done this first, but I had the great honor to attend the memorial, the James D. Hoff Peace Officer Memorial on May 5th. Sadly, we added another police officer to the wall. It was Detective Chad Parquet from North Las Vegas Police Department. And it's always a well-attended event. It was very well executed. The governor was there, Senator Heller was there, and a number of other elected officials. And I just wanted to thank everyone for their participation. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung, and thank you for representing us at that Peace Officer Memorial. I appreciate that. Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of things. I attended on our behalf the volunteer remembrance that the Senior Outreach Services does, and these are volunteers that are seniors helping seniors that we lost in the past year. Really lovely, and we were honored as well from some of the printing we've done for them, as well as some discretionary funding that I had given to the Senior Outreach Services, and I was proud to represent us there. I do have a future agenda item request, and that is it's a 2-hour rule to explore detention center issues with the sheriff, but it's going to take staff more than 2 hours from this side of this, so if that could come back, Mr. Manager, I'd appreciate that. And then I just want to point out in consent item 5F1, and this is the Washoe County and the Polygrarian Institute partnership, and what they do is education, research, and public awareness and outreach campaigns vis-a-vis food prescription program through Renown Health. They also are going to teach people how to build irrigation systems, hoop houses, goat and sheep shelters, and compost bins, and teach fruit tree pruning as well as grapevine pruning. And the Regional Parks and Open Space Commission wholeheartedly endorsed this project and program, and I would like to have an agenda item come back to give $500 of my discretionary funding to cover the loss of revenue under the existing grazing lease that is there. So just so they start out at least with not that debt. And they're here as well, but I need an agenda item to come back so that that money can be transferred to them sooner rather than later, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Commissioner Hartung, and thank you for attending that for us. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Piggybacking on Commissioner Jung's request, and maybe she is thinking along the same lines. I was thinking about this earlier. There's several places in the detention facility that I'd like to look at, but perhaps we could start with an audit of trying to understand how things actually occur, how contracts are negotiated, and what we're doing, and the role that we can actually play. So that's. It's exactly the same question that you have, but just again, trying to understand through an audit process of the monies that we've spent and what role we actually can oversee and play in the process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Vice Chair Burke-Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as long as we're talking about the sheriff's office, as you can imagine, I'm getting inundated with complaints about the dead bear and the fact that it's concerning for a lot of people that the sheriff deputy thought she was shooting a rubber bullet and she was shooting a real bullet in a residential neighborhood in Incline Village. Obviously, that is a concern. I don't know that this commission has any sense of responsibility, but I think it's worth at least exploring if we could have a discussion with the sheriff about, this shouldn't really happen in the future. What if there had been a child or something in that area and the child got shot? I mean, if she didn't know she was shooting a real bullet versus a rubber bullet, how does she know she was shooting a bear? I guess I'm really having a hard time with this, and I'm getting inundated with complaints from Incline Village. And not only that, but also people in Collin Ranch who are very concerned about having their neighborhood bears killed. So I think I've been telling everybody the sheriff is an independent elected body. We as a commission really do not oversee the sheriff's department, but perhaps that's something we need to discuss at a future date. So, and as long as Commissioner Jung brought up 5F1, which I fully support and think is a good idea, I do have a question about it. So I'll take the opportunity now to ask that question, and then it can be perhaps it can be answered if it hasn't already been. And that is if you look at the staff report, you'll see the parcel, the 5-acre parcel they're talking about is the portion that's right on Mayberry Drive. And so it's literally right next to the Bath's home. And I want to know whether or not anybody has discussed with the Bath's family that they're going to put hoop houses and all kinds of things right next to their house. And so, I mean, I know the property is ours and it's deeded to us, and we certainly can do what we want with it. But I think it would be nice if we at least let the neighborhood, the nearest neighbor know what we're looking at and have a discussion with them.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Jung.
A couple of things. I want to make it very clear in my asking for a 2-hour or more rule with the sheriff. It's more of a partnership with the sheriff's department than an investigation. I want to do what we can as a board and whatever it is that power that we have to, and resources that we have to help the sheriff through this time, and to begin having those community conversations to maybe explain a little bit more what the function is and where there probably are some necessary needs. When it comes to the Baths, they have goats and sheep on the other side of their property as well, so pretty sure that they're not going to have a problem with that. And frankly, if they do, this is our county property, and they moved next to county property, and we also did them a very big solid when they moved in there in terms of giving them the irrigation, and they got a lot of stuff from Washoe County. So, and I love Terry Bath, but if she's complaining about it, I'm very reticent to go there. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Anything further from either commissioners? I have a few things. One, I'd like to put on the record, I'd like to request staff time for staff to look into speeding issues on Andrew Lane and Rhodes Road. It's and look into speed bumps and what that process, and try to get that process started for the Andrew Lane area. So I'd ask that request for staff. Secondly, something that Commissioner Hartung and I have discussed is, funding discussions between departments for departmental legal defense and what that looks like. And I'd like to have a discussion with staff in regards to departmental legal defense I know each department pays into the fund through their annual budget. But if that's ever exceeded, what are those challenges? Because it is tax dollars that are covering those legal defenses based upon whether it's, discretionary challenges from the department or not. So I'd like to look into that. And kind of to dovetail off of what everyone else said this morning in regards to the Sheriff's Department. I have some major issues with some of the challenges recently with the Sheriff's Department. It is the Sheriff's Department, not the Sheriff's Office. It isn't the Office of the Sheriff. It is the Sheriff's Department. It does fall under the county umbrella, so to speak. So, working with the sheriff, and we have, as everybody knows, Sheriff Allen has elected not to run for re-election in the coming year. So what does that mean for the Sheriff's Department, and how does that transition go? We need to make sure that there's some transition capability in place for the sheriff, whether it's training issues, whether it's funding, whether where we're placing deputies in the area. If they're not seasoned to be in Incline Village, they probably shouldn't be patrolling in Incline Village. And some of those, so I'd like to bring those up and work with the sheriff as well to kind of get some resolution there. And at that time, that's only request I have. Actually, I do have one further. I have just an announcement. We have the American Public Transit Association here in town, a big conference for public transit. So as the vice chair of RTC and the chairman of RCVA, this is a big transit, bringing people from all over the country, who elected officials and managers and different individuals to our area to look at our public transit process and go through that conference here. So we're very privileged to have them with us, the APTA conference this week, and hopefully they're enjoying their stay here in beautiful Reno, Nevada, and Washoe County. So other than that, I have nothing else. So I will close commissioners and managers' announcements, and we will move on to consent.
Mr. Chair, your consent item appears as item 5 on your agenda, and there are items 5A through 5I2.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Is there anything that Commissioner Jung? Is there anything you would like to take out of?
Yes, all of my colleagues are far too modest to point out donations that they're making, and as I have traditionally been the donation outer, let me please walk us all through it, because I think it's important to show exactly all that you four do in your districts with your donations. So.
Thank you.
Item 5H2, this is from District 1 Vice Chairwoman Marcia Burke-Bigular. She recommends $1,000 grant to the University of Nevada, Reno for the Griffin Santini Endowment Fund, $8,500 grant to her alma mater, Duncan Traynor Library, for the addition of an audio station and makerspace, $2,500 grant to Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation for the senior walking program, $700 grant to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to sponsor 7 children for the Kids Fire Camp, and $5,000 grant to Friends of Washoe County Library for the Summer Reading Program 2017. So that shows you her values and her commitment to said values. Next up is 5H3, and this is District 2 Chairman Bob Lucy. He recommends $2,000 grant to South Valley's Library, a $5,000 grant to Washoe County Regional Parks and Open Space for improvements at the South Valley's Park, $5,000 grant to the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, and I know that our former Assistant County Manager is here, Joey Orduna Hastings. A $2,500 grant to Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation for the Senior Walking Program, and $5,500 grant to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to sponsor the Kids Fire Camp. Let's move on to 5H5. This is to approve Commission District Special Fund disbursement, and this is for District 4 Commissioner Mr. Von Hartung. He recommends $5,500 grant to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to sponsor the Kids Fire Camp, and $500 grant to Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to sponsor 5 children from District 4 to attend the Kids Fire Camp. And then we will move down to item 5H6. This is again District 4 Commissioner Von Hartung. He recommends, in support of Adeline Trimble projects, $300 grant to the Children's Cabinet, $300 grant to the Kids Cottage, $500 grant to the Food Bank of Northern Nevada, $300 grant to the American Cancer Society, a $300 grant to the Renown Health Foundation, and $300 grant to the Friends of Washoe County Library, and finally a $500 grant to the Washoe County School District Spanish Springs Elementary. Remember little Adeline was our commissioner for the day, and that whole item, 5H6, is inspired by Adeline, who inspired our Commissioner Von Hartung. So we would be remiss if I don't read out the other donations that you all are too modest to out there. So I thank all 3 of you, and you too, Commissioner Herman. When yours come up, I will make sure that I make a big deal and highlight it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. I really appreciate that. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad Commissioner Jung read that, because the sponsorship that I thought I was making for the 5 children was not just from District 4, but from Sparks, anywhere in Sparks, which also included a piece of District 3 and a piece of District 5. As long as they're from Sparks, so I don't know whether we can make that change, Mr. Manager. And I'm sorry for that confusion. I apologize. We're still sponsoring children. It's just from Sparks. Most of Sparks is District 4, but there's a bunch of things west of the Pyramid Highway, Commissioner Jung, as you well know, that belong to you, and that's it. If they're from Sparks, I'll send them.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
On advice of council, we just will move forward with the item, and as we select children, we will make sure that they are from Sparks, regardless of district.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank
All
you,
right.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. So seeing no items being removed, and we've now read the donations, thank you to Commissioner Jung for doing that. I have public comment signed in, so I'll take public comment at this time. So first I have Mr. Norman Acevedo signed in, followed by Miss Kathy Brandhorst. Mr. Acevedo.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Norm Azevedo. I'm here on behalf of myself. Joining me is my wife, Rhonda Azevedo. We're here on behalf of item 5G2, I believe. It's a proposed settlement agreement between our ranch and the county commission. First, I'd like to state that we are in support of the settlement agreement. That's why it's executed by myself on behalf of our LLC. But to go beyond that, I think it's important for this commission to understand the history of how we got here. This represents the culmination of an 8-year dispute over a road that we have that crosses our ranch, crosses public land. It's an easement. And for approximately 7 years, 6.5, I tried to administratively work this issue out with your staff to address the private quasi versus public nature of the road. Having lived in Washoe Valley since 1971, I had direct firsthand knowledge as to the existence of the road, its private status, and throughout most of the administrative discussions with your staff, I was assured that the road was private, but the road kept being published on your maps as public or in the alternative as Tunnel Creek Road, which has been declared by our Supreme Court to be public. The consequences of that for us were not insignificant. I myself have been threatened. We've had people from the public stretch wires across our road trying to harm either myself or my family, and been threatened with arson as a result of it. Fortunately, the U.S. Forest Service, we have a good working relationship with them. Their criminal park rangers came in and addressed a lot of those issues for us. But what I would tell you is the damages that we incurred were not insignificant, and an individual cannot adequately compete or address against the publication of a map as being public. Ultimately, this matter was resolved because we obtained a copy of an email from the county surveyor dated October 12, 2010, declaring our road to be private. We did not obtain that map until March of this year, and it was not disclosed during the litigation. And had we had that copy of that particular email that was addressed to all interested persons but not sent to the landowner, the lawsuit would have been unnecessary and we could have resolved this a lot quicker. And so I would submit in conclusion, I've heard some comments about the Washoe County Sheriff, but they have been our only source of relief in this matter up to this point, and we hope you approve the settlement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo. Next, Ms. Kathy Brandhorst.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. Yes, I'm going to talk on 5H2. Approve Commission District Special Fund disbursement in the amount of $17,700. Again, this is a lawsuit against the county commissioner, and they need this amount of money to pay for their lawsuits, otherwise they lose their life. District 1 Commissioner Marsha Burke-Bigler recommends $1,000 grant to the University of Nevada. Again, this is another lawsuit. And it says Reno for the Griffin Satini Endowment Fund. This person is dead. Who's going to bury this person? The county? $8,500 is what they need. Duncan Traynor Library for the addition of an audio station and maker space, excuse me, $2,500. Again, this is destroying tapes, and they were charged a lawsuit of $2,500. Grant to Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation for the Senior Walking Program, $700. Well, when we have a bullet hit our foot, a bullet hit our leg, who's gonna pay for it? It's gonna cost the county another $700. Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District to sponsor 7 children for the kids' fire camp. What's going to happen to these 7 children that you have held hostage? You're going to set them on fire and make sure they don't talk? You didn't give us a price on this either for the lawsuit of these 7 children who are being tortured to death. even set on fire to death. $5,000 grant to Friends of Washoe County Library for the summer reading program. I attended one. I thought it was a beautiful story. I sat among the children. They didn't mind.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst. Next, I have Ms. Elise Weatherly.
Hi, Elise Weatherly from Sun Valley, Nevada. I wanted to just kind of briefly discuss 5B, the Office of Traffic Safety. What I noticed is you guys have a really hard job because you have to deal with groups. You've got to give money away to groups, and you don't know who's in that group, really. It's based on individuals. Just to let you know, I have made a lot of donations over my life to what I thought was one thing, and it turned out to be another thing. So I appreciate the effort that you guys put into your jobs, because I know that it's hard. You can't please everybody. You can't do things that satisfy everybody, and you've got fiscal responsibilities. You're trying to keep laws. You're trying to keep rules. Just to let you know, I did see firsthand somebody in the Sparks Justice Court doing his court case, and he did a wonderful job. One of the things, too, was that they had this traffic school so that if, it's like this whole plea bargaining thing that was going on a lot. Because there were so many people in there, we'll give you less of a ticket if you take this class over here. So I understand what's going on with that. You've got to try to deal with these people as groups instead of individuals, but it still leaves some problems. How do you take care of groups, And one of the things that I want to say is that I don't think I'd want your job. I don't think I could handle under this pressure, and I'm going to do the very politically incorrect thing for you guys. I'm going to pray for you, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherly. Next, we have Mr. Sam Dene.
Sam Dene, that's me, the heart and soul, body and mind, and DNA of Reno government. I'm responsible for 92% of the good things about Reno, and I continue to challenge anybody to come and deny that, even the Reno Gazette wacko freaks. What we have here now is the consent agenda, and I'm going to speak on it generally. I have to say it again, the place where you sign in for the consent agenda is not citizen-friendly. It's very dark. The papers are tiny. I don't know how people can handle that sort of thing. There's bigger fish to fry, but why did you change everything? It used to be pretty good. On top of all that, more pragmatically speaking, you used to have the staff report agenda book so a person could go up and read what these tiny little staff reports were saying. Now you no longer have that for the citizens, so a citizen has to maybe even spend some of your time coming up here to try to figure out what's going on because the book is not there anymore. And ironically, I'm probably the only person who ever looked at the book, but I'm important enough to have that book up there. Please see to that, Mr. County Manager. I'm here to generally speak on, and what we have, the consent agenda, where they're going to vote basically on a whole bunch of things all at once, generally housekeeping things and donations and some self-serving glad handing and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm not here to be a curmudgeon. I'm here on 5 Delta. You're going to get $82,000 plus a $31,000 county match for housing program for the homeless families. That's about $120,000, which is not small change. But I can't figure this out. Over in Reno, where they've got this thing called the Volunteers of America, where the directors and the staff make dozens of thousands of dollars as volunteers. Think about that. At any rate, the Volunteers of America, if I can read that thing masquerading as a newspaper called the RGJ, they claim that the city of Reno has gotten on the order of $4 million for the homeless shelter people operation. Now, where do you all fit in there with a measly $110,000 going towards that? It doesn't It doesn't add up. So I don't know if I could read the book up there, I could find out maybe there's more than 110,000, or maybe there isn't. Why is Reno Volunteers of America receiving so much money for the homeless situation operation going on? $3 million, $4 million, according to the Reno Gazette wacko freaks. Thank you, thank you, thank you over there, and oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
An extra deputy, thank you over there.
All right. Assuming we have no other further public comment at this time, we'll bring it back to the board. At this time, looking for a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Burkbickler, or Vice Chair Burkbickler, second by Commissioner Hartung.
No, it's
That's backwards?
That's okay. It's all right.
All right.
It doesn't
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Mr. Manager, or Madam Vice Chair, do we have a block vote?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I propose we put in a block vote number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
All right. I have a block for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 with a motion from Commissioner Burkbickler. And, oh, actually, we'll wait till that. Mr. Manager, would you read those for me, please?
Item 6 is a recommendation to appoint one of Washoe County's members to the Truckee River Fund Advisory Committee. Staff recommends Brian Bonifant. Item 7 is possible action to approve on the recommendation of the chair, appointment of Michael W. Lawson to the Washoe County Planning Commission, representing Commission District 2, generally including the Southeast Truckee Meadows area, Southwest Truckee Meadows area, and Washoe Valley, to fill an unexpired term beginning on June 6, 2017, and ending on June 30, 2019, or until such time as Mr. Lawson no longer serves on the Planning Commission or a successor is appointed, whichever occurs first. Item 8 is possible action to approve on the recommendation of the chair the appointment of Ken Crater to the Washoe County Planning Commission when the commission convenes as the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee to fill a partial term beginning on May 9, 2017 and ending on June 30, 2017, and to fill a full term beginning on July 1, 2017 and ending on June 30, 2021, or until such time as Mr. Crater no longer serves on the Planning Commission as a member of the CIAC or a successor is appointed, whichever occurs first. Item 9 is a discussion possible action to approve and direct the Washoe County Manager to sign the Nevada Shared Radio System contract by and between the State of Nevada, acting through its Department of Transportation, NV Energy, and Washoe County, Nevada, as recommended by the Joint Operating Committee of the Washoe County Regional Communications System. Item 10 is recommendation to award a bid and approve the agreement to the lowest responsible bidder for the North Valley's Phase 5 Sports Complex Addition project. Staff recommends Sierra Nevada Construction in the amount of $2,333,007 and direct the Comptroller's Office to make the appropriate budget adjustments. And item 11 is authorization for the creation of one full-time program coordinator pending job evaluation committee approval to provide daily oversight of program and operations of the Family Engagement Center, Visitation Center, funded 100% by the Victims of Crime Act subgrant accepted by the board on July 26, 2016, and direct the Human Resources Department to make the necessary staffing adjustments and initiate the recruitment process.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. All right. I am going to move to public comment at this time. I have Mrs. Kathy Brandhorst signed in.
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. I wanted to talk on 7 and 8. Number 7, the Washoe County Planning Commission, representing Commission District 2. I just wanted to tell you, you know, when you people say that a certain person has been left off the Planning Commission, why? Because the person is dead. You had to get rid of the planning commissioner, and this is the only way you could get rid of this planning commissioner. Because he knows a little bit about somebody. Number 8, the appointment of Ken Crater of the Washoe County Planning Commission. When the commission convenes as the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. Yes, he is a good planning commissioner. And again, this one is dead. I attended these planning commission meetings, and I know that you're replacing them with somebody else that's never had a job in their entire lives. So you can take over the planning commission. What is it? Is it the housing situation that you can't find for yourselves because you pay nothing at all for a place to live? And you're stealing other people's houses. You're also stealing other people's homes. And this is the real reason for killing and murdering the people who were hired as the planning commissioner. I wanted to let you know that this is not right for anybody to die. It's not the right to bury these two men because they were on the planning commission. Remember, they are good people. They tell us what happens in this Washoe County. Is that the reason why you had to get rid of them? Yes, it is, isn't it? Don't forget, even though you got rid of them now, the Planning Commission now has, maybe 4 people involved that they were never hired as the Planning Commission. And you're going to use them to help you get a place to live for nothing.
Thank you, Ms. Brandhorst. All right, seeing no further public, I'll bring it back to the board. I have a motion, and then Commissioner Hart. It's still open.
You don't have, okay. Okay, I pushed
I'm
the
having
motion button, but that's okay.
Problems with.
I'll second it.
Okay.
But I pushed the motion button,
Well, she
so
had
I
to
don't
make,
know how
she had the motion because she made the block vote.
Yeah.
So was her motion make the block vote?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were still on consent.
No, you made the motion.
I'm asleep at the wheel, block.
Okay, so let's back
Block.
up here.
Block.
So I have a motion from Commissioner
Second.
Bigler, second from Commissioner Hartung for block. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And annotate on your, please vote on your, all those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Please confirm your vote. All right, seeing none other. All right, Mr. Manager, we are on to agenda item 12. This is a first reading.
This is the first reading, amending ordinance number 1000 in order to change the boundaries of district number 24.
Madam Clerk.
This would be Bill number 1778, an ordinance amending ordinance number 1000 in order to change the boundaries of District Number 24, groundwater remediation, and providing other matters relating thereto. The second part of this is Bill number 1779, should it pass, an ordinance imposing a fee on the parcels of land in Washoe County, Nevada, District 24, groundwater remediation, to pay the cost of developing and carrying out a plan for remediation and prescribing other matters relating thereto.
All right. Looking for an introduction.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just have some questions
Okay.
for council. And this is something that has plagued me, which is why my mind was elsewhere. I was looking again through this document, and I've looked through it on numerous occasions. Mr. Liparelli, why is that we have not held the dry cleaning community responsible for the PCE contamination of the groundwater?
Mr. Chairman, I'll venture an answer and also invite the technical experts to come in and help if you need more information. But the essence of it is that it's very difficult to pinpoint the sources of the contamination. So many businesses historically had practices that led to the creation of this plume of pollutants which travels naturally with the water, the underground water, that rather than trying to prove to the level of certainty that's needed in a civil legal matter who was responsible for it, the idea is to collect revenue from people who benefit from the treatment of the pollutants to treat the problem as a regional issue rather than trying to identify each individual polluter and each individual plume and their contributions to the pollutants. So imperfect as it is, this is a way of trying to treat the problem and advance public safety rather than bogging down in liability and issues in civil litigation.
Okay. And I'm going to support this, of course, because it's the right thing to do in terms of our groundwater, but I will bring back, in fact, I won't, it's not that I'll bring it back, but you will see something in the not-too-distant future that the Truckee Meadows Water Authority is working on some stuff in Spanish Springs just as a test case because we have high levels of nitrates, and it will ultimately work out very well, I think, for the PCE contamination also, whereby they're using some new technology to safely treat the water at the wellhead and deal with it sort of in a different manner. As most of this commission knows, and I shouldn't say most, as all this commission knows, and this goes back many years, PCEs were, actively dumped, and it's just it's one of those things that ultimately is coming home to roost, and we see it continuing to pollute our groundwater. So I will support it, although I'm very saddened by the fact that we have to pay for sort of the sins of people in the past who just actively just dumped chemicals thinking that there was no reason for harm to future generations. And again, it makes me really sad that we have to do this. This is one more thing, by the way. This is mostly in the city of Reno. City of Sparks has mostly, and I believe, have PCEs been outlawed, Mr. Smith? Do we know? They're still not outlawed? Or Mr. Liparelli? By the EPA?
For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects, through the chair to the commissioner. There are still parts of the industry that use PCE containing materials. The dry cleaners in particular have had a concerted effort to move away from using PCE in the dry cleaning process. As a matter of fact, in Sparks, there has been a significant push by the dry cleaning community to eliminate those PCE solvents, and I believe there is only one dry cleaner in the Sparks area that uses PCE currently.
Okay, and really what continues to happen is when they flush them, and I want everyone to understand what's going on here. When they flush them down into the sewer, it's actually leaching out because of fractures in the wastewater system?
Again, through the chair, I would say that's a very difficult question to answer. There's a lot of technical details that go along with that. But specifically, the dry cleaners are not allowed to pour chemical down drains. There's collection systems. There are processes and procedures in place at each dry cleaners to eliminate to the best ability, to the best of everybody's ability, that type of contamination pathway.
Okay. Okay, I'm still wondering how it got into the groundwater proper. You know, that's sort of the $64 question. Mr. Chairman, I move to introduce Bill number 1778, and for the clerk, do we also introduce 1779?
Yes, we do at this time.
Okay,
All right.
as outlined in the staff report. For
Great.
the second reading to be on, is it May 23rd?
June 13th.
June 13th, excuse me, thank you. All right, there it
Okay.
is.
So we have introduction for second reading on June 13th. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. All right, Mr. Manager, we are on to item 13.
Item 13 is an update on North Valley's flooding incident operations, and our Community Services Director and Incident Commander is here to give this update.
Good morning. For the record, Dave Solero, Director of Community Services Department. I've actually supplied some documents in the back of the room for the clerk, this presentation specifically, just for the record. But I'm going to go ahead and go through at a fairly high level, kind of continuing operations, what we're really looking at continuing on in the North Valleys. Now, this is Swan Lake, Silver Lake, and White Lake. So there are 3 terminal lakes in the North Valleys. I think it's important to understand that while we have maintenance activities of the barrier system that have been put into place and the pumping operations around Swan Lake, we also have recovery for those that can recover going on. So those are some of the homes that are protected by that barrier. We also have a response still for those homes that are not protected by that barrier and are vulnerable to increasing lake elevation levels as we move through the spring, summer, and looking forward on to next winter. So these are some of the things that we're working on specific to Swan Lake and Silver Lake. We have installed barriers, looking at Lemon Drive. These are all things that on a daily basis we have employees out reviewing, making sure that we're not breaching the system anywhere, that the pumps are operational, that the culverts are still holding, that the individually sandbagged homes and one church in the area are still dry or have a mitigation plan associated with those. One of the biggest things we're continuing to hear from the community is the ingress and egress. So we're working with the emergency responders to make sure we have proper ingress and egress for the community. And then one of the other items that's been brought up, and we're reaching out to the air races, is to determine kind of how we deal with traffic during the air races with having Lemon Drive still closed. What does that look like so we can have a proper plan put in place? It's one of the biggest concerns I've heard recently from the community is that there's going to be an issue with that, and we understand that, and we want to help mitigate the impacts of the air races on the community specifically that's been harmed here. So again, we've got 2 lakes that we've done some active work around. On the right-hand side of the screen is Swan Lake. That's got the most work that's been done to it. On the left-hand side is Silver Lake, and this is one that has 2 jurisdictions actually working hand in hand, City of Reno and Washoe County. So on the center of the screen, you see a big red line kind of running up the road there. That's the work City of Reno has done to help mitigate and protect some of their commercial areas that are built up around Silver Lake. And then on the kind of the top side, there's the location where Washoe County has residences that start kind of to the north of Swan Lake. So we have actually improved a section of Osage Road, which is a private road, to act as a barrier, and we've individually sandbagged 5 homes, met with the community out there. They understand what we're doing and why. We've protected to a level that we're all comfortable with right now. New development is on the webpage now. We're actually showing the elevation of water at Swan and Silver Lakes. So what this shows is the current level of the water and then the protection level for both of those lakes. So we still have some buffer is what we're calling it. We have a whole action plan that talks about when the lake level gets to a certain level, what are the actions that need to be done. So, at Silver Lake, for example, there's an action level at 49, 68 feet. There are things that need to occur when the lake level gets to that point. Same thing for Swan Lake. When the lake level gets, say, 49, 24, there are a certain set of tasks that need to be put into place and people to do that work. So that information actually has been tracked for quite a while. These are, our elevations specific to Swan Lake, and it shows, what shows here is the blue line is the actual lake elevation, and all the little green lines are all of the precipitation data that we have on the date that it occurred, so we can track what the precipitation did to the lake. We've got this for all the lakes out there, so that when we get to the point where we're actually planning for next fall, next winter, next spring, we'll be able to have a better idea of what to expect. That's important because currently we have 26 homes that are tagged that we're working through the process with. These are homes that have been damaged in some form or fashion. We've cleared 2 of them for reoccupancy, and we're working with the individual homeowners to assist in getting them through the process of clearing those tags. They're at different various stages of rebuilding and access to homes around Swan Lake. We still have homes that are individually sandbagged, and still really it's hard to access those. I mean, nobody's living in those. They're being provided housing if they've taken us up on that through our social services group, where we're providing 6 months of housing. Horses, we've been housing some horses through Animal Services, and those horses are scheduled to return to their owners on May 12th. But as we move forward, looking ahead, the precipitation data and the response to the lakes is important because at some point we would like to, when it's safe for the traveling public, when it's safe for the infrastructure, relocate potentially the barrier system that we've put up to reopen Lemon Drive. However, a lot of that is dependent on Mother Nature and how quickly we evaporate off of that lake. It's projected that we might get a 3-foot drop due to evaporation over the summer months, which is pretty good, but it's not the drying up of the lake that we need. So part of that is when we see that evaporation, whether we go back and install barriers around locations that aren't protected, the end of Pompey, over on Osage in Silver Lake, to make sure that all of our homes are protected to a level that we've been able to protect. The reasons with some of those areas haven't been barriered right now is because the number one thing that we're trying to do is safety of the responders and the public. We don't want to put people responding to this into a harm's way. So that's the number one item, and then we've got the protection of the public infrastructure, and then thirdly, the protection of the private homes. So that's kind of where we're headed. So as we get this drying effect, as we start to see things recede, we want to make sure that it's safe to get people in there to do work. We want to make sure that the roadway is safe for the traveling public. You've got to remember that most of these sections of Lemon Boulevard right now they've been sitting underwater now for going on 4 months. That has an effect to the subgrade underneath the roadway, and so we need to make sure that that's safe to allow traveling public when we get to that point. Looking forward is, again, the potential for higher water levels next year based on precipitation that may occur in the next winter cycle. If we're going to evaporate off 3 feet, what does that look like? How does that pool look moving into next year with potential precipitation? So that goes again back to, the information we've been studying, information we've been pulling in so that we can make those predictions on what we think that the water level is going to do based on the reaction currently to the lake on precipitation events. So we can graph out what that might look like as an example. If we get a half an inch of rain, what does that response do to the lake? We'll be able to utilize that. Now this is kind of what we're considering a worst case scenario, because you've got to remember that part of the problem we had is starting in October, we had these rains and the soil got saturated, and then the point where, regardless of what kind of surface the water was hitting, it was all running to the bottom of the lake. So, majority of these rain events were after the soil was already saturated, so this is kind of considered the worst case scenario in our planning moving forward. One of the items that has come up a couple of times is mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes is not going to be specific to the North Valleys area. This is going to be a county-wide problem. There's not necessarily a county-wide solution, but we have some of the brightest people that understand the CDC recommendations regarding mosquitoes, dealing with the mosquito potential within Washoe County. The Health District has been working hand in hand with the Washoe County team to really help us understand what options we have available to deal with mosquitoes. Now, again, this isn't just specific to the North Valleys. This is, Washoe County, state of Nevada, Northern California, this is an issue that's going to occur more than just in the North Valleys area. So what we do have here on the screen are some things that people can do to assist. So one of the most important things is removing standing water on your home. When we go and do our mosquito abatement with larvicides, those are in areas that are, not over homes, they're not in the backyards. It doesn't take much water to create a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And so we're asking that the community go ahead and, look in your flower pots, make sure that the water is, not sitting in the little tray at the bottom of your flower pots out in the backyard. If you've got tires, if you've got kids' toys, all those sorts of things that can house water, we want to make sure that you get that water dried up, because that's mosquitoes are going to breed in the backyards, even if we go out and apply a larvicide throughout the county. So here's just a few things that people can do. When you're outside, wear the long sleeves, long pants, utilize DEET or picaridin, oil of lemon, eucalyptus, or other natural products to protect yourself. Repair the screens around your house so that the mosquitoes can't get in. And again, most importantly, it's to remove the standing water around your home so we don't continue to breed mosquitoes. The concern with the mosquitoes is obviously the West Nile virus in this area. That's what the health district has told me. That's what we're trying to protect against. They've done some work showing that in 2006, after we had the flood, a large spike in the increase in West Nile virus cases reported. I'd like to say that we're going to go out there and we're going to treat for these mosquitoes and it's going to take care of the problem, but I can pretty much guarantee it's not. We've got higher populations of people, more chances for exposure. It's really, we need the public to do their part in cooperation with the work that we're going to be doing countywide to deal with mosquitoes. So if people have any increased mosquito population around their house and they would like us to look into it, we've got the number here for the health district to go out and do a check. So with that, I will leave it to any questions that you may have. Again, I've got contact information for myself or anybody from the public that has any specific questions regarding North Valleys, and I'll bring it back to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Solero. I have Commissioner Hartung signed in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Solero, as you well know, Spanish Springs, huge issue with mosquitoes. We've had it for years and years and years because of all of the open water, and so we're anticipating higher incidents again this year. It's something that we live with regardless of where open water is, and sometimes it doesn't always make a difference in terms of the size of the body of water. It has more to do with the stillness of it and their ability to breed and the populations grow because of the warm weather. So I know I've talked on numerous occasions to Mr. Schaefer with vector control. They do as much as they can with the limited funds that they have, and it's just going to be a tough year. Everybody's dealing with this from north to south and east to west. So I appreciate the update, and I know that vector control is doing the best that they possibly can. I have a question for you about putting barriers in the road, such as sandbags, to act as speed bumps. If an emergency vehicle hits that and does damage or there's an accident, where does that liability lie? That might be a question for Mr. Liparelli.
It may be. I mean, that's obviously that the speeds in the area have been impactful.
In other words, we're not allowed to put things in the road, is the point.
Mr. Chairman, obstructing a public road can be a criminal offense, prosecutable as a misdemeanor.
Okay. And then, of course, sandbags are going to, when people run over them, they're going to break open, and then we've got a dust issue. And so I don't know what we need to do in certain places, but certainly making sure that we're not putting sandbags in the road to control speed. There's other ways to do it, and asking the sheriff they're the overseers of those public right-of-ways in terms of speed. So I'm very concerned with that as a method whereby people take those kinds of issues into their own hands and try to deal with speeding automobiles. I wanted to make sure that we got that on the record, and I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, Mr. Solero, I understand, but, you know, anytime someone obstructs a roadway, that can be an issue. My last question is, are we anticipating much traffic on the far end of Lemon Drive truly for the air races? Because I know a lot of people access not so much through Lemon, but across Military Road.
Yeah, for the commissioner through the chair. So the issue is really the impact of the residents now that we're pushing down through Military and that way, and their
I see.
interaction
I got
getting
it.
in and out of their neighborhood.
I see.
That's really the bigger concern is
Okay.
how that's
So it
going
has more
interact.
to do with Military Road and the way that they can access certain pieces of Lemon Drive.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are thinking about this ahead of time, because that's a common bypass for air race users, and especially local traffic to get to the air races. So, well done. That's all I have, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Commissioner Hartung. Vice Chair Burke-Bigler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Solero. That was a very interesting presentation, and I appreciate everything that you and your team are doing. I want to once again give you guys a shout out for stepping up and adding this additional problem to your plate. As I reminded I was in Incline Village speaking to a group last night, and as I reminded them, as they were fussing about the bear that got shot, that Incline Village is not the only place that our staff is worried about. Our staff is spread very, very thin, and that applies also to Lemon Valley, but I do really appreciate that you guys are putting so much effort into Lemon Valley. I am concerned about how that road is going to ever come clear. As you are aware, I've told you my brother lives out there, and so my brother and his neighbors routinely contact me and say, when do we get our road back? And so I am concerned about that. But as I understand it, that road actually belongs to the city of Reno.
That is correct.
So when the opportunity finally comes to move the barriers, that road is going to have to be probably completely taken apart and repaired by the city of Reno?
There's a good chance that sections of that road are going to need to be completely rebuilt. And so we've been working with the city of Reno, and part of it's a project that's been identified for the public assistance portion of the FEMA declaration. And so we're working through that process of what that looks like. But until we can really get out there and understand what damage has been done to the road,
Right.
what needs to be fixed, it's a little early right now to start pointing fingers about who's going to pay for what. So
Yeah.
we'll get there.
It's truly amazing. I just, an aside from other areas that are flooding, where I walk my dogs along Alum Creek, and along the river and on Alum Creek, and with this last rainstorm, of course, the creek went over its banks and rolled over the path again. And in one area where we walk, the water, and this creek doesn't have, it's not that big of a creek, but the water is moving so quickly, it literally lifted up the asphalt. It's fascinating what the damage that's done. This is an area that they had repaired after, the city of Reno had repaired after the January damage, where it was completely washed out. So, I think it's really important for us to remember that this is a big job. It's not going to get done overnight. And I just really appreciate you, Mr. Solero, and all of your team that are working so hard on it. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll be sure to let the team know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Manager Slaughter.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to follow up on a portion that dealt with mosquitoes. During a normal year, obviously this is not a normal year, during a normal year, which last budget season we thought we were going into, the health district, who is responsible for vector control, had budgeted their normal budget for mosquito abatement. In a typical year, normal year, they treat about 250 acres for mosquitoes. Obviously, this has changed, and so we are working, our staff working with the health district, we're working to identify funding to do the additional vector control for mosquitoes that is going to need to be done. As Mr. Solero mentioned, it's not just a North Valley's issue, it's a county-wide issue. So I just wanted to let commissioners know and recall during our budget discussions, our most recent budget discussions, we talked about the impacts that these natural disasters have had on our budget. This is obviously one of those situations that we're working through and working in a timely manner to get what's needed to be done with the mosquitoes abatement, get that done in a timely fashion. So we are working on that.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo the rest of the team here. I know, Mr. Solaro, we have expended quite a bit of tax dollars in one certain area of this county, and if that full accounting, if and when it becomes public, there's also going to be other people in this county that are going to be very upset with how much we've expended here. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but we have a limited pie, and the argument that we've done nothing there is clearly not a true statement. The people that are here complaining about it, frankly, are not even flooded, are they? Are their homes flooded or red tagged or yellow tagged, sir? Okay, but the others are not. And we have provided housing, we've provided food, we've provided a fund drive, and I think it's time to put this to bed. It's been belabored, and it is very, I think, disrespectful to staff that they get up here every time and tell us how bad staff do. Staff didn't sign up for this job for that. That's my job. You got a complaint, come to me. It is to a point that, as you can tell, I'm frustrated, and there are a lot of other issues in this county, including a very flat budget. So I thank you, Mr. Solaro. I do want to impress upon the manager as well, no more of the jics. No more of the community meetings. We know how to communicate when there are changes, but you know, I can't do a community or commission meeting because staff is spread so thin. I was supposed to have one this Saturday. Guess who doesn't get one this Saturday? Because we have so much going on with these natural disasters. So I just want to express my frustration. And then as the chair of the District Board of Health, I want to say to you, Mr. Slaughter, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to our district health officer, because as you know, we have no wiggle room when it comes to the 250 square miles of eradication that we can do, and we know it's probably 5 times that we're going to need to do this year. So I'm really pleased to hear you willing to sit down and help us, and I'd be remiss to say Chief Brown is here, and he's also on the District Board of Health, so he knows the wiggle room that we are in, or not so wiggly room that we're in, and that's countywide, including Incline Village, Spanish Springs, Panther Valley, Raleigh Heights. I mean, it goes on the jail. We are running in so many circles, and I feel like the whole story is not getting out there in terms of, as much as Solaro, I would love to see his time card, frankly, and Nancy Lewinhagen's time card, and our community relations staff's time card, because that in itself is got to be tremendous. So I back you up, Mr. Solaro, and I encourage anybody with complaints to please come to me and not to singularly go after employees. That's not their job. That's my job. I'm the one that gets yelled at. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Commissioner Hartung. Try to keep this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and piggybacking somewhat on Commissioner Jung's response, Mr. Manager, and maybe even Commissioner Jung, do you know for vector control, do we have some CDC funding or some grants that we can rely on for increased, call it an outbreak, because we do have a lot of standing water countywide?
Mr. Chair.
And they've done a great job in Spanish Springs, by the way, over the years.
To answer the question, simple answer is no. CDC type grant, we are looking at all sources, so we are reviewing, looking to what is available. So during our discussions with staff, the mosquito problem will be countywide, so it's not just a North Valley's issue, as I mentioned earlier. Because of that, we are looking at funding sources countywide, and if we can identify grants, we will. But to date, I'm not aware of any CDC type grants or other types of grants that are available for this kind of a
Okay, I know.
but we're looking at everything.
No, I just wondered if the CDC did have, because they are trying to curtail the movement of the Zika virus, and controlling mosquitoes is one of those. And I know that Zika has not arrived in Washoe County yet, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't.
I want to
possibly.
be very clear about that. The Zika is specific to a mosquito. The virus is specific to a mosquito that is not in our area. But as Mr. Solero had talked earlier, this is not just a Washoe County issue in Nevada, it's a statewide issue. It's a Western region issue. So we will be tapping into all of the discussions and all of, and where, if and where there are funding sources, we'll do everything we can to tap into those.
No, and I understand completely. And I would just remind us, though, remember when West Nile virus was only on the East Coast? We saw no incidents whatsoever. There was a small outbreak on the East Coast, and of course in Florida, and now it's here. So,
So if I could, one last, and Commissioner Jung is the better expert on this. The Health District is actively monitoring mosquitoes. They are.
Yes, we have test areas. We have chickens that are our first carriers that we own to see if they have West Nile or any of these other viruses. So it's avian is how we track it. We also go to the standing water and pull out a sample to see if there's any larvae in there, and that's where we know to treat as well. But in terms of Zika, good point, Commissioner Hartung, but truly the mosquito that carries that needs constant warm humidity. And thankfully, we don't have that. But we are always on the lookout of everything when it comes to that. And we also have horses that we test for the West Nile. So we have an interesting way that we do things over there, but it's actually the best practices in terms of the carrier being identified, and then being able to project where it would go after that. But it's top of mind for the district health right now.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. I just, now that we've kind of concluded some of those. Mr. Solero, I just have a couple questions for you. Tentative window for a reopening of Lemon Drive, please.
That's a loaded question, if you don't mind me saying so. So
I like to send them loaded like that.
Yeah, no, the issue is, again, traffic safety, safety of the public. As soon as we can make that determination, we will do that, but it is going to take us some time. I mean, it's not something I can say, hey, as soon as the water goes down across Lemon Boulevard, it's going to happen. It might not occur, if it occurs at all this year, until the late fall.
No, okay, so potentially late fall.
At the earliest.
Challenges, but the certain steps are, obviously we have to have certain amount of recession in regards to the water, then inspect, the road as it is, make sure safety is achieved in regards to standards for that road, correct?
Correct, and part of that also is the look ahead to next year. Part of the issue is we've got some good areas right now that are on the opposite side of Lemon Boulevard or Lemon Drive that we can waste water in, so to speak. As soon as we make that lake smaller, the lake rise occurs quicker. So we need to be very cognizant of that, and that's part of the engineering process that we're going through right now, is to take a look at, if we go ahead and move that barrier along Lemon and open that up, what does that do for us for next year as far as capacity of that lake? So those are all the things we're taking into account.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one thing I just want to put on the record, I did receive an email from a constituent in Lemon Valley asking for they wanted some reimbursement, so to speak, of monies for excess mileage that they have to drive and time that they have to drive because of Lemon Valley's closure. I can assure you there will be no reimbursement for the road being closed for time and mileage that you have to travel to and from your house. That to me is, I know, seems maybe understandable to those individuals, but will not happen. Also, and then they requested, if that was not to be granted, that there would be some property tax, reimbursement for property tax. Once again, for the property owners that were affected through the flood, and there's some different things that I know we are doing for those individuals, but for just individuals who live in the area, there will be no property tax abatement because you've had challenges of maneuvering around Lemon Valley. That will not happen. So I want to make sure that that's on the record and very clear. And I'm not ashamed to say that this is just part of the, unfortunately part of the game. We have to, work with what we have, and just because you have to drive out on an alternate route doesn't mean that there is going to be abatements or give backs for that matter. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that that got on the record. Vice Chair Burke-Bickler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other thing that I know it was brought up by someone who testified earlier that we put dumpsters out there. Is that, do we know if Waste Management has the dumpsters? Do we have the ability to put dumpsters out there so that they can have a place to throw the stuff that they have to throw out?
For the Commissioner, through the Chair. So one of the things we're working through as a team is the debris management plan, which talks specifically to a couple of different areas. So there are those 26 impacted homes and one business that we're looking at, trying to tailor a process for them. We've been working with the community out there. I know that there was a dumpster donated out there, but part of really what does that look like once they start getting into the process? Part of that is, again, we had the discussion earlier about building permitting and what insurance companies cover and what they won't. Some of those insurance companies cover that cost, and so we're trying to be specific about how we roll this out.
Right.
Waste Management has reached out to us and said, hey, when you're ready, let us know. We'll work through something with you. So that's the part for the affected people, and then there's kind of the broader piece. There's a couple of parts. Once we get outside those homes, all the sandbags that were delivered out to people's homes and sandbag the homes, what to do with those, how do we address that?
Right.
We're working through some communication on that because we're starting to get, not just in Lemon Valley, but other locations right now, questions about what do I do with all these sandbags? So we want to make sure we have a plan and really address that piece. Right now, my recommendation is with the snow melt, you talked about it with Alum Creek, we still have areas where with the snow melt, we may end up with flooding. And so we want to make sure that those people understand that if you were flooded and you needed sandbags before, during the winter, you may want to hang on to those for a while. And so we're working through that process right now and hope to have some communication out by the end of the week countywide on that. But then there's the impacts. We've got still a whole section out there in Swan Lake that the reeds from over by our park have displaced, and they're floating all around the lake. They're benched up in locations. So that's another piece of debris management that we're working through and how to get rid of that and how to do it in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
So it is top of mind, and we are working with those individuals and working
Good,
through that plan.
thank you. I appreciate hearing that. It's interesting, in my neighborhood, I live right off the river on the west side of town, and the people who live, literally, I live right across the street from the river. The people whose houses back up to that river all have their backyards still sandbagged. And we're on the high side of the river. So it's not like, a lot of other people are going to be flooded before we get flooded on our side. But there are houses on the opposite side of Idlewild Drive that have sandbags still sitting right by their garages. And so everybody is, at least in our neighborhood, we're close to the river, they're still keeping their sandbags close by because we don't know what's going to happen. From the presentation that we received that I received when I was at TRPA, not last week, but the week before, they're projecting there's 3 feet of snow, 3 feet of water that will roll into Lake Tahoe. They've lowered it a foot, and so now it's 1 foot and 6 inches below the federally designated level that it can be, and still 3 feet of water that's going into that lake. And that's if we get no more rain, nothing else. And actually that was before this storm this weekend, so I don't know what they got up there this weekend, but it's significant, and it's wise to keep your sandbags close by because you could get flooded again.
And I just want a quick comment off of that, and it kind of spiked me. I have friends that live in North Lake Tahoe on the California side, and just this weekend with this last storm, what once was never a river is now a waterfall behind homes and down driveways. So water's coming off the hill in different places, new places, challenging places that have never been before. And so we are still to see a number of changes now with the increasing temperatures just in the last few weeks. We're going to see some dramatic changes in the runoff and what that looks like. So it's not just Lemon Valley that's impacted. We are going to, just because this one, and the video you should see of this, what was a driveway is now a waterfall. you should, I mean, could happen to any part of our homes in Incline Village, any of our homes in Washoe Valley, any of our homes, so there's a number of challenging places throughout the valley and in the county as a whole that have these impacts. So we need to be cognizant of that as we move forward. So Commissioner Hart.
Chair?
Yes.
One last thing on that. As I said, I was in Incline Village last night. As driving up on Mount Rose Highway, the snow's piled pretty high, and as you got above the ski resort, got above Mount Rose Ski Resort, there were 3 places where the water was rolling across the freeway, across the Mount Rose Highway, 2 inches deep. 2 inches deep it was rolling. I'm literally and running. Their cars were going through it at about 10 miles an hour because it was significant water that's running off. I don't know where that's going, but it's going somewhere down the hill.
Absolutely. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on the dumpsters, I know we have needs in the unincorporated area of Spanish Springs. There's lots of debris everywhere. It's not just Lemon Valley. And I think, did we supply dumpsters for the devastation in the Little Valley fire? Yeah. So, I mean, we have to. And while I'm not opposed to reaching out to Waste Management in a partnership to see if they can assist the community that they serve, as do we, I'm very reticent about spending taxpayer dollars in any one given area because I know that it's everywhere. It is county-wide.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I'll bet you they've got it out in Black Rock. I bet you they have needs for, it's a lake, yeah. Lots of debris. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. All right, thank you, Mr. Solero. I have public comment signed in at this time, so Ms. Tammy Holt-Still.
Hello again, Tammy Holt, still for the record. I may not be one that is flooded. However, the people that are flooded work. I happen to be lucky enough to be retired. I talk to these people on a daily basis. I see their needs. I hear their frustration. So I am here talking about this information. You guys have this picture. These homes have not, when the barriers went up.
Can we get the overhead, please?
When the barrier went up, we, meaning I know Danny did, I know I did, I spoke to different people regarding making sure that homes were not affected by the barrier. These people live off of James on Shane Drive. They have, as you can see, the lake is moving towards their home, which would be, I would say, north, okay? There is a fence line that goes all the way down, and at the time that the barrier went up, there was nothing put there like they did over on Compton, okay? This is why I get upset. This is the things I'm talking about. It's only a half of a job. You protect certain people, but you don't protect all the people. There was no reason they couldn't have put that kind of barrier on this right here before the water went up. As you see, one of the residents put sandbags up trying to help, but I've been to that home, and the water is 10 feet away from the home inside that yard. This is the kind of thing that I've been talking about. And as far as getting upset, I think I have a right to be upset that it's not being protected. You talked about doing utility. Well, you know what? Half of the issue out here is we are a closed basin, and there's been additional building done in areas that used to retain water. That additional building are the people that should be, and any other developments should be retaining their own water before it goes to that lake. That lake already knows what it can hold. You also have the sewer plant. It was only supposed to have 490 acres of water going into it. Right now, I have been measuring it every single day. It runs from 9 inches on a clear day to 12 inches of water, which is a foot, and sometimes it goes up to 2 feet of water going into the lake from that City of Reno sewer plant, and the runoff from wherever else it's coming from, which we figure is the Silver Lake that they're pumping into Swan Lake. Okay, what else did I have on here? Oh, stillness. You know, again, if you guys were to turn around and do the aspirators, it would take care of the stillness of the water and the mosquitoes.
Thank you, Ms. Holtstill. Mr. Danicleus.
My name is Danny Cleus. I invite all of you to come out to my house. You want to talk to me? Come out to my house. You want to talk to my neighbors? Come out to my house. There are neighbors right now trying to rebuild. It's not pretty. They don't have the funds to actually go through and do what they're supposed to do. They're doing the bare minimum to get back in their house. Now, according to what we were talking about earlier, about what water can run into Swan Lake from Stead area. Right here is the Swan Lake Master Plan from Reno, the City of Reno. It says 490 acre-feet of influent from the Stead treatment plant to be permanently allocated to Swan Lake. Now this is off of Swan Lake's master plan. This was wrote in 2012. There's a lot more than 490 acre-feet going into that lake every day, because we have runoff from somewhere that's going in there. Another thing was addressed. Sandbag speed bumps. Our sheriff's department, Truckee Meadows Fire Department said it was the best deal going on. Another thing was said, we're going around to individuals to help them do the recovery. My block hasn't seen anybody. Why is that? Another thing that was up there that Mr. Solero said, the culverts are getting done. Not in my neighborhood. From the last rain, I have over 2 inches of water sitting in the ditch still. How am I supposed to get rid of that? I trim my grass as short as I can to keep my dogs, keep my grandkids safe, keep me safe from mosquitoes. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to suck the water out of our ditches? Are we supposed to, we're supposed to have individual help to recover our homes? The 2 people that are doing it right now aren't. They're not getting no help. Our community has came together so much. Marshall Realty is the one that donated the dumpster out there. Our community does more than the county does, and I'm tired of it. We don't see people. We haven't seen anybody on my block forever. I'm pissed about it, especially when somebody comes up here and says we're doing so much. Yeah, tell those people on Shane Drive, you guys are doing so much.
Thank you, Mr. Cleus. All right, seeing no further public comment, bring it back to the board. Looking for a motion to accept the report. I have a motion. Second motion by Commissioner Hartung. Second by Commissioner Jung. All right, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Place your vote. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Please affirm your vote. Thank you very much. Mr. Manager, item 14, please.
Item 14 is discussion direction of staff regarding legislation or legislative issues proposed by legislators by Washington County or by other entities permitted by the Nevada State Legislature to submit bill draft requests for such legislative issues as may be deemed by the chair or the board to be of critical significance to Washoe County. Mr. Chair, I might suggest that we also open item 15.
Yes, let's
which is
open
the
item
same item
14 and
except
15,
for
correct.
Fire
Yes.
Protection District.
Thank
Truckee Meadows
you.
Fire Protection District.
You want to read 15 in, please?
Mr. Rogers is here. You should have a handout that at the top is titled Washoe County 2017 Legislative Week 13 Bills of Interest, correct?
Yes. All right, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, for the record, Al Rogers, Office of the County Manager. As indicated by the County Manager, you do have a report for Week 13, Bills of Interest. We also did include a more detailed report from the legislative session that captures last week and does, at the end of that report, identify some hearings, some that have already happened in the last 2 days. So real quickly to orient you to this document, the first 3 bills that are identified on page 1 are those that this board has given direction on, all of those in support. The bottom one, again, still in the neutral position. And then on the second page, we have SB 315, which this board has given direction to oppose. I draw your attention to the next 4 bills, if you've had a chance to review those. Those today we are bringing forth. I think we've talked about some of them in the past, but today we're really focused on those in terms of getting direction from you with recommendations there as it relates to those 4 bills, AB 271, 384, SB 356, and SB 462, and again, I'm remiss, we had a little bit of a typo here on page 3 of that one. SB 462 authorizes the County Commission to create a committee to review GIDs. That part of the narrative is missing at the top of that page, so I add that to this hearing to capture that. So we are looking at those, and in the final 11 that we have identified there are ones, again, that we've talked about, we've had on this list, but that we continue to hold in a watch position, or again, at least recommend to hold in a watch position as we progress through the last 4 weeks of the session. So with that, I'm happy to answer all questions in collaboration with the County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for the presentation. Vice Chair Burke-Bickler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted for the record to let everybody know that I did testify yesterday on behalf, in support of SB 462. I made it clear that it had, and went on record that it had not been approved by this commission, that we would be addressing it today. This particular bill is Senator Settlemeyer's bill. It has had some amendments that in some respects make it better, in some respects make it a little weaker for us. I do think, though, that it steps in the right direction because it allows us to review GIDs. So just a little bit of information that as to why Senator Settlemeyer brought this forward. He has a GID. So Douglas County, and Senator Settlemeyer represents Douglas County, there are 22 GIDs in Douglas County. One of them, a number of them are road GIDs because, of course, you know, they have a lot of rural areas, and so they have mountainous areas where they get snow. In one, this is really what prompted, this is the GID that prompted Senator Settlemeyer to bring this forward, aside from the problem at Lake Tahoe, this particular issue. The residents who live on one side of the road that they are responsible for are the people who sit on the board, the elected board of the GID. The residents who live on the opposite side don't know, nobody sits on the board, and they all got into a fight with each other, and so now the GID only paves, or only plows 1/2 of the road. Seriously, we actually have GIDs who are using taxpayer dollars to, and not only do they only plow one side of the road, this was the most interesting testimony that I've ever heard an elected official give, but they put the plow so that it doesn't push it off into the ditch, it pushes all the snow over onto the bad people's side, and the good people's side, or those who sit on the board, they get their side of the road clear, the other side doesn't get clear. That is the most asinine thing I've ever heard of when you're talking about taxpayer dollars. And so his testimony, and I supported his testimony. His testimony was that most of these GIDs were put in place and there is no oversight. Or there hasn't been any audit, not there is no oversight. He believes, and he testified as such, that county commissions currently have oversight and can do something about the bad players. when I testified that I had a letter from our district attorney saying that, in fact, that's not accurate, that we cannot step in. I said it would be similar to us going to Washoe County School District as an elected body and telling them, we don't like the way you're running, so we're taking over things. Essentially, that would be the same thing with the GID. And Settlemyre agreed that that was, in fact, accurate. He did make the statement that that was an accurate assessment of the whole thing. But I think what this does for us is it really allows us to just take a look in general at GIDs that may need to be reviewed as to whether or not they're doing the job that they were originally put together to do. Nothing in this bill will allow the committee that is set up, and that's what this is. It's not a review by the commission. The commission sets up a committee. And nothing in this bill would then allow that committee to do anything about the GID. That will have to go back to the 2019 session, and the changes, any changes, potential changes would have to be approved by the legislature in 2019. Regardless of the fact that I think this could be stronger, I still think this is a bill that has the potential to really benefit the county, and I would recommend and make a motion that we support SB 462.
All right. I would support Commissioner Vice Chair Burke-Bigler in that. I believe that the work that she's put into SB 462 in the bill as amended currently is deserves our support as a board. I think it's gone through some extensive work and is looking good. It will be a good bill for us. So on that recommendation, and I also would, in addition, so I would support that and second her motion, but I'd also follow suit with the other two oppositions, the opposition of AB 384 and the opposition of SB 356 as an amended motion.
Mr. Chair, yes, the motioner would amend the motion to do that.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. At this time, I have Commissioner Hartung signed in. Commissioner Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so, Commissioner Burke-Bigler, am I to understand that by plowing half the road, which would mean that you travel on the right side of the road going one direction, that they don't ever think they need to come back on the other side of the road?
They're only, Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Left turns only.
They're only
right turns.
plowing their side of the road. And so they apparently drive back and forth on their side of the road.
Okay, so we have a
My
motion.
response to that is I'm truly trying to understand how these GIDs can operate with such autonomy. That is very, very interesting. So I'm fully supportive of the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Great. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please submit your vote. All right. Affirm your vote. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. I think you got your direction.
I did, Mr. Chair. If the board would like to entertain, if there are any other questions on other bills, Assistant County Manager Schiller is here also, maybe to give a quick update. We don't include in this, and certainly not by, it's not going on or we remiss it, but any of the legislation and current happenings related to recreational marijuana.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Schiller, can we get a brief update on the inner workings of the work group that you're participating in for recreational marijuana?
For the record, Kevin Schiller, Assistant County Manager, Chairman, members of the board. So for purposes of this update, I was going to divide it into two areas. As you know, I believe you know I'm on the Governor's Task Force, which meets about every 2 weeks down in Carson City, and then secondarily, based on that, have some appointments on subcommittees tied to various areas. But I wanted to make sure I gave you a brief update. We're starting to near the end of the task force, and there's really two pieces that are happening. A primary focus, which has really been a coordination between NACO and the League of Cities, has been tied to local government funding. So one of the key components is what that structure is going to look like. We should have some conclusion to that by about June. As you might guess, there's BDRs that are moving through the legislature, which are tied to proposals on that funding, and at the same time, there's lobbying occurring related to both those bills and recommendations to the Department of Taxation. The marijuana oversight and the regulation is going to shift from public and behavioral health to taxation, so that's why that piece is there tied to the governor's task force. First, breaking it into the funding, there's really two proposals that are on the table. Nothing's been brought to conclusion, but one is for a percentage of the excise tax, and then the secondary one is really tied to licensing fees and tied to fees tied to annual gross revenue. So similar to alcohol and similar to issues like that, ties there. So on the excise tax side, just so you're aware, there's no leaning one way or the other at this point. I've heard recommendations both directions, but on the business licensing side, depending on what jurisdiction you talk to in proposals, it's somewhere between 3 all the way up to 8% in terms of that request, so that you have some level of what that equates to Washoe County. If I take the low end of that number, it's in the millions of dollars tied to what the revenue would be. But again, you have to be cautious somewhat in relationship to that ask, because if we overtax it, what it will do is, again, it supports the black market. So we're really trying to look at what's reasonable tied to that. You'll get a formal update once I have a little more assurance as to what that recommendation is, probably in the next 2 weeks. Second piece tied to that same level is also, as you may have seen even on the news this morning, everybody's talking about the July 1 start date in terms of early start. So the regulations did come out. They came out specific to the temporary regulations from the state tied to the early start. For the most part, those mirror, for the most part, medical in terms of the regulatory structure. The only difference in that is that pursuant to what the voters passed, it's tied into medical marijuana dispensaries and existing certificate holders being players in the recreational component of that. So with that comes two really levels of discussion. As you can recall, in the medical marijuana side and implementation, as local jurisdictions, we all kind of fragmented in terms of how we started and what we did. Discussions I'm having with City of Reno and other staff is tied to some level of a concurrent start date tied to recreational implementation, so that once the dust settles related to the legislative impacts and the regulatory impacts and the finance impacts, I can come to you with recommendations tied to that with an agreed upon start date. The concurrent agreement is really tied to the fact that in Northern Nevada, and we've kind of led that over the last couple years, having kind of a uniform process so that we don't end up fragmenting in terms of over here we're doing A and over here we're doing B. So again, this is not an action item. I just want to make sure you update on the conversations we're having tied to that. There'll be something brought before you specific to that in the very near future, but it's on the radar and we are right in the middle. I'm probably having daily contact tied to the industry and tied to the legislative side, tied to what we bring forward for code and how we work on that. But I wanted to ensure you were updated.
Thank you, Mr. Schiller. Vice Chair Burke-Baylor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Schiller, as I understand it, and I know the regulations are out. I haven't looked at them yet this morning, but as I understand it, the regulations basically are allowing those medical marijuana dispensaries that are already open to sell recreational marijuana without any approval from the local governments.
Yeah, that's correct, tied to the regulatory process.
Okay, so do we get to license them?
Yes.
So we do get to issue a second license. Have we set up, is there a cap on what we can charge them for that second license?
So that's the ongoing discussion that's alive at the moment.
Okay.
So my next update to you will hopefully be the concrete detail tied to that in the business licensing side.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burke-Baylor. You know, do we have any further comments on this? And thank you very much for your report, Assistant County Manager Schiller. I appreciate all the work that you've been doing down in Carson, and I'd be remiss if I didn't state the work that you've been doing down there and all the praise that I constantly get from the legislators. I know. I was on a flight home on Sunday night from Vegas, and every legislator that walked by me and recognized me said, oh, we love that. Mr. County Manager Schiller, he's doing such a great job. He's helping us with these and that. So big thank you for all the work that you've done in Carson this session. You've been a tremendous help and you're very astute when it comes to a number of issues. So thank you. All right, seeing nothing further. We have a motion, second. We just voted we're good on that, so we don't need to take any action there. So thank you, Mr. Rogers. We are all done with that. Mr. Manager, we have done 14 and 15. We are on to item 16.
Item 16 is discussion and update pursuant to Commissioner's previous requests and/or topics for future agendas. Mr. Rogers, here again, you should have report related to this item. The BCC monthly report. Just a reminder, this is our regularly scheduled now review of these requests.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Al Rogers. We've included, again, still in this beta phase of creating a report that we hope we get to that meets all of your needs. Very similar, I would note that we did add on the second page, you'll see a BCC monthly report that takes the commissioner issues and puts them into a metric for you, not only by district, but also by total since last year. We've got your pages, and we also, based on the conversation and the direction I believe we received, have included an expanded BCC monthly report related to WASHO 311. So those calls that are coming in through, but not calls, but all methods of communication coming into WASHO 311 have been captured, divided, or distributed by the district that they're coming in from, and we've reported that out again in hopefully an easy to review chart form, and then also by individual commissioner we've provided those numbers. I guess maybe starting with that and working back, and certainly want to answer your questions related to the issues that were brought up earlier. On the WASHO 311, you'll notice that there's a couple of different numbers there. Total number, I believe, is 751 service requests, and of those we've captured a little over 100 that are categorized into your various district. Just to explain that a little bit is that when a call or a request comes into WASHO 311, staff there does a tremendous job, and if it's a one touch, and I'll say that just that we're touching the customer from a phone call and refer them quickly to a department or get them to the resource that they need, we capture that, but it's not one that we put into the system and continue to monitor. So that's kind of the explanation, is that we capture every call, every email, every web request that comes in, but we've only categorized those by district, that those are really truly in the system, not the ones that we just kind of touch and move on to the resource. So far, again, WASHO 311 is still in its infancy. We'll continue to grow it, and certainly as we approach the full 311 capabilities, we'll be launching and branding that resource to the entire community, which again, I think will be valuable to them. And then working back again, we do have the metrics related to each of the commissioners by district and total requests. Again, you can see that we've had over 120 requests and completed about 55% of those. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions and/or any direction related to this report.
All right. I don't have anybody signed in at this time for any discussion on this. Okay. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rogers, on what's listed as my item 9 under Chairman Lucy and myself, the alarm ordinance, is there a reason why June 23rd? Because here's the real crux of this. I'm personally ready. I mean, I'm tired of excuses. I've tried to reach out to the company. They've given me no response whatsoever. I'm ready to send it out to RFP. Just find somebody new. You know, in terms of their non-responsive nature, they think that they don't have to respond to the county commission, only to the sheriff. That there's going to be that's a misnomer on their part. So I'm sad that this is going to take until the mid-portion of the year, literally, almost July, to even review. And I know this was brought up last year. This was brought up in the, in the end of 2016, and then going into 2017. It really became apparent, and I hate to sound like this, when I received my own notice that I hadn't paid my bill. It wasn't just spotty, in my opinion. There was a lot more going out, and so it was like it was unattended to. So I'm hoping we can move that up. And one of the things I don't see on here again, and maybe I'm just not reading it properly, waste management is still open for discussion. And so I don't see it under mine. Perhaps it's under Commissioner Lucy's or Commissioner Burke-Bigler's or Commissioner Herman's or Commissioner Jung's. I don't know. I've tried to scan over it, but I don't see it listed for us, and I noticed my bill went up again.
Yep, mine too.
Yep.
I got another increase. So this is,
Yeah,
we've had no resolve.
I agree, and I think that's one that we need to move up to our primaries. On the very first sheet of the monthly report, we have the primary request. Waste management needs to reside on that top of that until that issue is fully resolved and that amendment is changed to that waste management agreement. So we've moved that up there, and I would agree with Commissioner Hartung. Himself and I have asked for this repeatedly. I received a phone call just this morning from a constituent about the report and the non-commitment to us, the county commission, non-commitment to the participant, the reasoning behind it. I know we've asked Manager Slaughter, and he has assured me that there's reports that'll be coming back in a new about fees in general and why and what the purpose of those fees are per department and what the benefit are those. But this is one that I need resolution to in the coming weeks.
Which one are you referring to, Mr. Chair?
I'm referring to the alarm that you're
The
talking.
alarm ordinance.
The
Okay,
alarm
thank you. That's what
ordinance.
I thought. And
Yeah, I need a resolution to that, along with Commissioner Hartung, within the next couple of weeks, not June. I need it by the end of May. I'd like to see it at the end of the last board meeting of this month.
And
So,
because-
something.
Because if I may, if we have to send it out to RFP, Mr. Chairman, we need to get on that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'd
because
like
we're moving
some-
into a new fiscal year.
Yeah, I'd like some direction now, by the end of the month, not June. Okay?
To Mr. Chair, to the Commissioner Hartung also, hear you loud and clear. I think the first step would be to, if we can get it in the end of the month, which I think we can in cooperation with our partner, the Washington County Sheriff's Office, is to bring back Code 50 or County Code 54. It has a history, I think, that with the exception of Commissioner Jung, happened before this commission. So there was a lot of activity in its initiation back in 2009, 2010. It was changed again in 2012. So I think at the very least a primer, if you will, on Chapter 54, so that we can address your concerns, I think would be something that we could turn around in quick fashion with the Sheriff's Office.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'm not disagreeing that an amendment to 54 is necessary, but I think it's just, in reality, I don't know whether it's just 54 or the company that we're dealing with and their non-responsive nature. That's more concerning to me, and they seem to be acting independently and sending out these fees to people. And when people see that kind of stuff and they think that it's officially coming from Washoe County, because that's sort of the way that it's listed, that they go ahead and they pay. They don't want to be in any trouble with Washoe County because they fear that potentially their properties are going to be liened or something of that nature. And so they pay the improperly assessed fees. And so, this company really needs to come before us and talk to us, and I want a full accounting.
And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Commissioner Hartung. And one other thing to add to that is that as a county, we lose control of our ability to basically impose what's proper and what isn't improper to our residents. You know, if we dole this out to third parties frequently, and I'm speaking currently just an example of the alarm tracking situation. However, there could be a number of issues that we send fee collections out to third parties, and if they're not responsive to us with accounting and what they're doing, who knows? Out of the 500,000 residents, what bills they're getting sent out and what people are just paying utilizing our logo and what that, I mean, there are a number of scams out there that impact, and the sheriff's office I know tracks us down, but there's a lot of issues out there that, you know, is it proper, what's the proper accounting, how much is being collected, where's that money going? We've asked for that, and it's not an unreasonable ask to have that and have that information to us in a fashion, you know, in a reasonable time frame. And I think we've gone beyond that. So one other thing that I want to look at, a couple things I need to obviously address. Number 49 on my request sheet is the request for myself to return as a flood board member. I think we've resolved that internally. I think Commissioner Herman has maintained that position, will maintain that position.
Mr. Chair, just on that one, we plan to bring an item back on May 23rd, just to your point.
Reaffirm that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then also, some of these requests, you know, I'd like to get, the one thing I don't, you know, in the next steps, it says memo, but what does the memo mean? And when, I'd like to get some dates, you know, aside with those memos, because there's issues I talked about when I first got elected. You know, in the beer garden in Callahan Schoolhouse, you know, where, you know, that's TBD, but, you know, what does that mean? Are we waiting for them? Is it us? Is it challenges? I want a little bit more depth in some of those issues, because that was a request I made back in 2015. And so it's been a year and a half with that. And then Thomas Creek speeding enforcement signing request. I want an update on that. And then also one thing that Commissioner Jung and I have been dealing with, which has been in my district, is wild horses along Washoe Valley. There's been a request from constituents out in Washoe Valley that we construct in one of the solar flashers, the solar flashers that notify of wild horses crossings out in Washoe Valley on East Lake Boulevard. So I'd like to get that. I know I've spoken to Mr. Solero about that, but one of those questions, that's another request I'd like to get on the record. So, Commissioner Jung.
I make a suggestion about this, which is a new report that arguably staff has spent considerable amount of time tracking and putting all this data somewhere. But I think this is a one-off. I think this needs to be one-on-one with whomever is assigned to this, not at a commission meeting, so that we can give direction and what we need to do. This is not, I don't believe that this is a good use of a business meeting to go over each of our issues identified here, and I would encourage staff, before you bring this to the board, that you do the one-offs with all of us. I know you did with me, so I'm fine, but that doesn't mean you caught everyone, and it's been crazy, and people have been traveling, but I think that'd be a better use of our time here at this meeting. And I do like your 311 data that you included in there.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Mr. Chair, just to address Commissioner Jung, we will continue to do that, and thank you for the point in terms of the one-offs. This, again, is intended to come at the first meeting of every month, so obviously we're not going to wait for that. We'll continue the dialogue throughout the month, and hopefully we can find those times, even if it's 15, 20 minutes to check in. Also, to address the chair, your question in terms of memo, defining some of these, we'll continue to do those in one-ons too, in terms of follow-ups. But it is our intent with all memorandums, if it's not an item that necessarily needs to come back to the board for board action, is that we would follow up in memo format, which we've done in the past with other things, to the entire board, so that it may be your issue, but we'll contact and make sure all of the board is informed in terms of any written communication. So with those memos, just as we've done with board items, we'll define those the best that we can in terms of a date or end of time that we'd like to get back, so you have some indication of what the time frame is that you should hear something.
Okay, great. And Mr. Rogers, one other thing I would ask on these, you know, I think I agree with Commissioner Jung. I think the one-offs definitely need to be transpire before these board meetings, or if this was going to be, you know, first of the month agenda item, so we can have that kind of those discussions in a better use of a business meeting. One thing I would ask, though, is that with the Washoe 311 calls per district, because we'll probably, when we have those one-offs, we'll discuss my district, Commissioner Jung's district independently. However, before we get to those, if we see that waste management happens to be an issue in all 4 of our 5 districts, and or whether it's flooding or whatever that be, that those be elevated to primary immediately without having to have those discussions with us. If they're a countywide issue that we're getting those requests and they're significant enough, they need to be elevated to a primary request, because it's obviously something from all 5 districts, not an individual request that we're doing one-offs on. So that would be my suggestion going forward, that we move those immediately, okay? Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while I agree with Commissioner Jung as far as the one-offs, what I do see as a benefit is when we do have this discussion, people know what we're doing in a public meeting. They know that we're concerned with issues with waste management. And so on waste management, Mr. Rogers, item 14 is information on the contract variations between Washoe County and Incline Village. Just add the whole thing back in, the contract negotiations to that, because I think that's all part of it. That's a little too narrow, and so just, the whole issue with waste management can be put back under that sort of heading.
Okay.
And I do like to meet with staff one-on-one, but I also do like to have these conversations because it triggers sometimes. I'll say, well, I have an issue in District 4 with certain kinds of things, and then Commissioner Birkbigler can say, we have this same issue in District 1. And so it does give us some ability to have this conversation as a group, which I think is very important. So I wouldn't want to eliminate it completely, but I can understand the streamlining of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Manager Slaughter.
Mr. Chair, just real brief, and just to wrap this up, we will go back and we can continue to refine this. There is a note of caution on getting too deep in the weeds on each of these individual items, because they're not posted on our agenda that topic is going to be discussed, so we'll need to adjust for that. And I just wanted to conclude by mentioning and continue to push out the Washoe 311 as a way for citizens and as you talk to constituents, a location for them to get answers as well. Some phone calls, just a quick answer will satisfy a request from a citizen. So really pushing the 311 system, which is up, running. I check in periodically. What's the most frequent issue we're hearing, in line with what Commissioner Hartung was talking about earlier. It's a great source of information of what the community is talking about. So I would just, again, push out Washoe 311.
Perfect. Thank you, Manager Slaughter and Mr. Rogers. Appreciate your time today. All right, we are back to our final public comment.
Are we on item 16?
16, yeah. We don't need direction on that. We just did.
Okay, I thought we were talking about that. I have one other item, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We'll reopen 16.
Thank you. I received an email from a constituent who says that he's baffled by the fact that irrigation ditches in Washoe County are bone dry. So maybe we can bring some information back as to what, he says at a time when the Truckee River is being slammed to get rid of water in anticipation.
Wait. You're in the wrong, you're looking to do 18, which is your commissioners.
I'm sorry.
You go ahead of me here, buddy. So this was just discussions about the monthly report.
Commissioners'
and
previous requests.
Okay. So.
I'm on 18. Forgive me.
Thank you. Public comment. We have a public comment. We have Miss Kathy Brandhorst signed in, and she's no longer with us. So we will close that out. Now we are on to item 18. Mr. Manager.
Announcements, reports, updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I am in desperate need of different.
You got a haircut, and you started getting all slick and fast.
I can't.
Moving ahead.
See and read with.
You can't see and read?
Well, these
That's
glasses
tough.
are a little interesting.
Come on.
Constituent writes, I am baffled by the fact that the irrigation ditches in Washoe County are bone dry. And then he wants to know, because the river is overtopping and we're trying to get rid of water, why aren't we running it through the irrigation ditches for people to use, on their private properties and et cetera, and golf courses? And so I understand that we're not in control of that water supply, but it might be good to just have something short as to who actually controls those, because it's, I believe it's controlled by, in fact, I not believe, it's controlled by TROA. So I think it would be good, though, that we make people understand, or let people understand who's actually in control of those ditches and the water supply. And I think that goes back, Mr. Chairman, to the cleaning of the ditches and who's responsible and when they can actually push water through them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
I have two requests. First of all, I don't believe we need any more agendized Lemon Valley updates. Thank you very much. I think you can update those Lemon Valley residents through other means and materials. And then finally, I would like staff to explore a special assessment district for Lemon Valley, so that in the future, which we also know, doesn't need to be a GID, it could just be an SAD. So in the future, we can make sure that they are paying towards these flooding issues that they were well aware of when they bought their properties, and many of whom can't even get home insurance because they're in a dry lake bed. So I believe that they need to be assessed like all the rest of the county is being assessed for these special incidences than which we often find even ourselves in. So that's my two requests. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further comments. Commissioner Herman.
Did you?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I just, Lemon Valley flooding is a real thing. It really happened. It's been happening since January, and I don't think we can minimize that in any way. I appreciate everything that's been done, but these people are still under a lot of water, and there's a. She should have said that when they were. It's just something that we can't just minimize. It's there. It's still going on, and we can't just forget it.
I want it off the agenda.
But if it happens in Washoe Valley or anywhere else, I mean, we're going to have to take care of it too. Anywhere it happens. That's what our job is, to protect and serve. So that's enough.
Thank you, Commissioner Herman. All right. Seeing nothing further, we will close the commission. We'll close at 18. We are adjourned.